This is Budget Cuts Ultimate, a brand new set featuring both Budget Cuts and Budget Cuts 2 Mission Insolvency that brings an updated locomotion system as well as an arcade mode and a collection of modifiers that lets you change such things as gravity and bullet time. For those new to the series, this now classic action stealth VR series was a true innovator in what is now considered modern VR. The game allows players to sneak around enemy robots by climbing through air ducts and service tunnels, or embrace violence by unleashing a fistful of knives, arrows, grenades, and coffee mugs into their unsuspecting robots. Think of this as Job Simulator meets Hitman, and I think you'll have an idea of what awaits you. But does this series still hold up many years later? Stick around and let's find out. Hey guys, it's Chris from the VR Grid and welcome to the channel. If you like this video, give it a like, and if you're interested in more VR content from us, of course, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss new videos as they drop. And if you're looking to join our VR conversations, of course, feel free to leave a comment as we love to talk to you. Alrighty, let's jump in, shall we? This is releasing June 1st for both the Quest and PSVR 2, but for this review, I played it on the PSVR 2. The story here is pretty simple, as what began as a cost-cutting strategy by a money-hungry CEO has spiraled out of control, and now it's up to you to save humanity from being optimized out of existence. With a lot of social commentary about capitalism and office life, the Budget Cut series opts to give us a mirror of our own, often ridiculous work-life trappings rather than tell a deep story, and I'm fine with that as it works here. Now, the combining of both the first and second Budget Cuts games was a great idea here, as neither game was very long, clocking in around the 2 to 3 hour mark each. Having played the first game back on the PSVR 1, but never jumping into the second game on my PC, I was actually surprised at how well these two games combine together, which is both a good and bad thing as they make for a single cohesive experience. But I had thought the second game was going to be a larger step up gameplay and graphics wise, and it really isn't. But more on the visuals in a bit. Gameplay wise, the simple core mechanics are the same across both games, with the series focusing on stealth, combat, and some light puzzles often based around the navigation of hidden areas between walls or above ceiling tiles using your nifty teleportation gun. As such, you will spend much of your time balancing your small inventory space and looking for the correct access card to access certain areas. This was a gameplay loop that I did enjoy in the first game, as it made me think about where to go, but never really frustrated me either. However, where the first and second game do differ is on the balance of stealth versus combat. I'm not a very patient person, so sneaking around the first game with only a few knives or blades to defend myself with got old fast for me. However, I know that is what many loved about the first game. Thankfully for me though, Budget Cuts 2, which in Budget Cuts Ultimate is simply the second half of the game, puts much more focus on the combat side of things and gives players a new bow and arrow tool to fight back with. Armed with a generous amount of arrows, much of the latter part of Budget Cuts Ultimate does do away with a lot of that stealth and asks players to fight. The bow here actually takes a bit of skill though, with a double reticule that needs to be lined up, so I actually really enjoyed the challenge here of making each shot count, which consequently allowed me to avoid sneaking around that much. And speaking of combat, one change seen in this Ultimate Edition is that now your arrows, knives, and scissors all break after taking down an enemy. As such, you can't simply just pull these out of downed robots and reuse them, which makes for much more of a need to scrounge for ammo. Additionally, the Budget Cuts 2 content side of things also sees the game spend much of its time away from that office setting of the first, taking players on much more of an adventure, while also focusing a bit more on world traversal and vertical exploration, which again works well here in the second part of the bundle, as it does make for a nice break from the often white office walls that dominated the first game. And when you're done with the core game, players will be able to further dive into the additional content found in the Ultimate Edition of Budget Cuts, coming in the form of gameplay modifiers or the arcade mode, which includes a local high score system, 5 replayable levels, 3 difficulty settings, and a budget calculator scoring system that will show you how much money your mission has cost. However, what might be the best thing about this new Budget Cuts bundle is the inclusion of a more modern VR locomotion system, finally offering players the choice to use smooth locomotion to walk around the game's stages, which in both versions had previously relegated players to having to teleport. Consequently, this makes the Budget Cuts games feel much more modern and now allows the teleportation gun to simply be a tool to reach hard to access spots, move quickly, or for use as a spy camera. This is a real game changer for the series, guys, and it shouldn't be understated, as when combined with the PSVR 2's DualSense haptics, felt both in the controllers and the headset, it takes what felt like a series that was stuck in the early days of VR and makes it feel like a proper VR title for 2023. However, when looking at the visuals of this new Budget Cuts collection, I sadly cannot say the same thing, as visually this comes off as a very lazy port, offering no visible improvements to the game's graphics, short of maybe a slight resolution boost from the PSVR 1, but it is not in line with what the headset is capable of here, and it still offers some jagged edges and texture popping, which does make this feel like an old game series that was released for the Quest and then just simply pushed over to the PSVR 2 with no real effort to take advantage of the better visual hardware. Personally, I don't expect for indie developer Neat Corporation to redesign an aging title for new headsets, as its chosen art style is absolutely just part of what makes Budget Cuts, but I do think that a proper resolution bump to sharpen things up would have been in order. For when comparing Budget Cuts to the recently released Red Matter 2, it just comes off as quite embarrassing. The diversity of the environments and slightly more interesting texture designs seen in Budget Cuts 2 does help the latter part of the bundle here, but it's minor at best. As such, Budget Cuts Ultimate on PSVR 2 often looks like a game from 2016. Audio-wise though, I would say that Budget Cuts 1 and 2 have stood the test of time, at least for the most part. Much of this is due to the excellent voice work of both the robots and your assistant, as it's well performed and often a bit humorous in its social commentary.
Attention, attention. Work is fun. If you ever feel like you could be working harder, then you probably should. Remember, more work equals more fun. You're welcome.
Off time tomorrow. Thank you.
I am in no hurry to return to the Transcorp offices. I hope you're not either, because we're heading straight into the Lion's Den. This train stops close to the Transcorp Cost Optimizer mainframe. We need to shut it down for good. I think I know how, and it shouldn't be too hard, promise.
However, where the game does fall a bit short is in its 3D audio design, or lack thereof, as the game simply lacks the more sophisticated audio design of latter VR games. Fortunately, it rarely does affect combat, as the combat here isn't too sophisticated, but it is noticeable from time to time. And that brings me to my final thoughts and review score. Budget Cuts Ultimate is exactly that, as it takes both games in the series, stuffs in a bunch of other fun content, and finishes it off with an updated control system, some gameplay tweaks, and haptic support for the PSVR 2 users. Unfortunately, it doesn't really update the visuals, and what was a simple looking game series when it launched years ago looks quite dated on the PSVR 2 in 2023. However, the games are still fun, and if you never played either title in the series, this is still a really good time in VR. Unfortunately though, for those like me who might have played the first title back on the PSVR 1 or on PC and are mostly interested in playing Budget Cuts 2 content, just be aware that you can't simply play the second title and must play through the first half of the game in order to get to the latter half, which is Budget Cuts 2 Mission Insolvency, which was frankly very irritating. Anyways, the VR Grid gives Budget Cuts Ultimate a 7 out of 10. Anyways guys, that's it from us. If you like this video, please hit that like button, subscribe if you aren't already, and in the comments below, please consider letting us know if this is a game you're interested, and if not, why. I am Chris from the VR Grid, and I will catch you guys on my next video.